All right, so a couple of days ago, a Russian jet came into direct contact with a US drone that was flying over the Black Sea for who knows what exactly, but I got a clip here that we're going to show you directly from the Pentagon of what this actually looked like. Pretty insane stuff, but obviously this comes at a time of heightened tensions between the United States, the rest of NATO, and Russia as the ongoing invasion of Ukraine continues with pretty much no end in sight at this point. We've had some mild progress, it seems, on some diplomatic efforts, one of which was led by China, actually, and it appears like Zelensky is, willing to at least engage in some of those talks at this point. So obviously the war has been horrific, and the last thing that we would want is a further escalation, which is why situations like this are, again, absolutely terrifying. So here from Al Jazeera, they say U.S. releases video of Black Sea drone incident with Russian jet. They say the United States military has released footage it says is an unsafe interception of a U.S. drone by a Russian jet over the Black Sea. The U.S. on Tuesday alleged that a Russian Su-27 fighter jet struck one of its Reaper drones, it's an unmanned drone obviously, during a surveillance and reconnaissance mission, forcing U.S. operators to bring it down in international waters, and Russia, of course, denied it deliberately brought down the unmanned aerial vehicle. Now, we're going to watch this. Honestly, I mean, unless this is just a completely doctored and, fabricated deepfake or something in this clip, then it does look like the jet was intentionally doing exactly what it's doing. So let's just go ahead and watch this clip real quick. All right, so you got the jet approaching. This is obviously the camera that's on the drone itself. Comes up on it, it's sort of like, looks like it's stalling there, doing some sort of maneuver, drops a bunch of fuel on it, the camera starts to glitch out. I think it circles back a second time and actually completely disables the camera here in a second. So let's wait, see if we can see that portion of this. So it circles back around here and comes in for the fuel dump. I mean, this shit is just absolutely wild, and it looks like then the camera glitches out, and then obviously they had to bring it back down to the ground. Okay, so a little bit more information on this. Now, honestly, again, I'm looking at that seems a hell of a lot, to me at least, like that was in fact intentional. Now, again, it's an unmanned drone. It's not as if this was directly like American troops coming into contact with Russia, but another question here is like, okay, given the tensions that we have with Russia, who has the largest nuclear arsenal on the face of the planet, given the current tensions of the ongoing war in Ukraine, is it really necessary for us to be flying reconnaissance drones in the Black Sea, which is right off the coast of Crimea, where a lot of the conflict has been focusing? I mean, is this something that we really necessarily need to be doing? And on top of that, if you say, okay, well, we need reconnaissance missions like this, and especially situations like this, when it comes to a war that we are supporting the defenders, the Ukrainians, in this equation, well, we also know that the United States has been providing intelligence directly to the Ukrainians to, strike back against specific Russian targets, and in some cases even like high-ranking military officials and all of that. So we may be using drones like this in order to get intelligence as a part of this war to help Ukraine. So honestly, if you're looking at this, obviously I don't support Vladimir Putin or Russia in this invasion in any way, shape, or form, but if you're just doing a strategic calculus from Russia's perspective, yes, of course they are going to shoot down a reconnaissance drone that's in the field of war. I mean, it was in international waters, but at the same time, yes, this is right where this war is ongoing. Of course they're going to shoot it down the same way that the United States would, they didn't shoot it down, but they would take down a drone, just like the United States would do the exact same thing if Russia or China was flying a drone off the eastern coast of the United States in like South Carolina or Florida. We would not tolerate that. So of course, in the middle of a war, they're just going to have to take that down. That just seems like what it is. So my interpretation of that would be, let's all cool our jets here, okay, no pun intended. Let's not escalate this. Let's not use this as a justification to further ramp up this war and further ramp up the rhetoric. Let's just have cooler heads prevail in this instance. But we got a little bit more information on the threat of escalation here from Al Jazeera. They say, while intercept attempts are not uncommon, the incident amid Russia's invasion of Ukraine has raised concerns that it could bring Kyiv backer Washington and Moscow closer to direct conflict. Pentagon Chief Lloyd Austin and Joint Chiefs of Staff Chairman General Mark Milley on Wednesday spoke with their Russian counterparts. Okay, so that part is at least good, that they have an open channel of communication and that they talked about this. Seems like we're not sending the nukes, at least yet. But they say the Russian Defense Ministry, in its report of the call call with Austin that Shoigu accused the U.S. of provoking the incident by ignoring flight restrictions the Kremlin had imposed because of its military operations in Ukraine, and Russia also blamed the intensification of intelligence activities against the interests of the Russian Federation, which, like, yes, that's just a fact. The United States, again, is using our intelligence apparatus in order to support Ukraine in this war, but they say such U.S. actions are fraught with escalation of the situation in the Black Sea area, the ministry said, warning that Russia will respond in kind to all provocations. So I guess, at least hopefully, if the response to this type of a so-called provocation is just to dump fuel on a drone that's unmanned, okay, maybe we can deal with that. Kind of reminds me of like the Chinese balloon situation where it's like, okay, this might seem scary at first, right? Oh, China's floating a balloon over the United States. Oh, Russia managed to take down one of our unmanned reconnaissance drones. But at the end of the day, it's like, okay, this is not worth, the massive hysteria. This is not worth, making this a more tense situation than it already is. So with that being laid out there, and that's my take on this situation, now we move on to a pretty predictable take here from none other than Lindsey Graham, one of the most pathetic senators that we have in our government here in the United States, who, of course, loving every single war or potential war that he could possibly come across, is essentially calling for World War III in response to this event. So let's go ahead and watch this clip here.
They shot down our drone. What should our answer be?
Well, we should hold them accountable and say that if you ever get near another U.S. set flying in international waters, your airplane would be shot down. What would Ronald Reagan do right now? He would start shooting Russian planes down if they were threatening our assets. American foreign
Okay, so many different things to say about that. I mean, only a 20-second clip. First of all, if you are ever asking yourself, what would Ronald Reagan do in any situation, in any way, you've already completely lost the plot. You have completely fucked up, and you need to full speed sprint in the opposite direction of wherever that conclusion is going to take you, okay? That's number one. But on top of that, he's essentially calling for us to start a direct hot war with Russia. He's calling for shooting down, okay, Russian jets in response to what? Them dumping fuel on an unmanned drone in the middle of a war? I mean, are they supposed to know exactly who sent that drone, what type of drone it is, what type of mission specifically that they're on? I mean, that's what he's calling for. World War III, direct war between two of the most massive nuclear-armed arsenals in the world over this, okay? That's what he's actually proposing here. I mean, it's completely batshit insane. We should be obviously working in the opposite direction of that and trying to cool down the situation and potentially work towards some sort of a diplomatic negotiated settlement. Okay, but of course he has to chime in here and push for, essentially the end of civilization as we know it in response to this. Now, again, another crazy thing that he was saying here, I mean, first of all, I love the Chiron down here saying Biden's weakness emboldens America's enemies, which is also kind of weird because, like, Fox has been playing a lot with, like, pulling back on Ukraine aid and sort of pulling ourselves out of this war and not giving weapon support to the Ukrainians and really following in Trump's footsteps on some of that, and DeSantis as well, who have been very sort of more like, backed off of Ukraine in terms of that being a priority for the United States over the last couple of months. So it's kind of weird that they're now framing this as, like, I guess what, Biden is like a Putin puppet at this point or something, kind of flipping the narrative on that one. But on top of that, I mean, again, they're talking about this as if this is some sort of like an emblematic example of how weak the United States is. I mean, first off, this is our drone. We are flying this in a war territory right now that is a very tense situation. Okay, how would we respond in the exact same kind of a situation? And then on top of that, the last thing that was absolutely hilarious in this conversation here is they talk about accountability with drones. Okay, so we need to hold Russia accountable by starting World War III with them, okay, for shooting down one of our drones, for shooting down one of our, or not even shooting down, again, I keep getting that mistaken, okay, not shooting down, dumping fuel and causing our drone to have to land, okay, that in response to that, we should be shooting down their jets, okay, that's accountability in his mind. But then what about the accountability for the entirety of the American drone war, where, there was that one period under the Obama administration where 90% of the casualties were civilians? Okay, how about accountability for those war crimes or the drone war in general? Okay, I mean, I give a little bit of credit to Biden, who It seems like over his administration has dramatically scaled back the drone war, but I mean, are we just not going to have a conversation about that, right? We're not going to have a conversation about all of the leaked documents in regards to America's illegal drone activities all across the world. I mean, we have been drone striking, close to a dozen countries over the last decade or so. So, I mean, again, this entire conversation is honestly completely ridiculous. Again, we are still in the middle of this war. There have been some semblance of good signs that potentially diplomacy could be on the table at some point in the future. Obviously, it's going to be an extremely difficult thing to get, Zelensky, the Ukrainian government, to agree on virtually anything with Vladimir Putin and the Russian government, but that's the direction that we need to go, because the longer this war drags on, the more types of close calls and tense situations like this you are going to have, and the more that you are going to have war hawks like Lindsey Graham calling for us to start World War III.
Everyone is saying good Politic guy has the best Politic. Believe me, no one does it like him. Believe me, everyone is saying